So I think we can start. First of all, thank you very much for coming. It's a very important day for our university. First of all, because we are today celebrating the 9th anniversary of this university. And we didn't really plan this event particularly, but we think that it's a very important occasion to reflect upon a topic which is extremely relevant for today's society in Georgia. And by that, I mean the topic of the gender equality. As you know, we have been discussing this issue in the last years and months from a political point of view, from the point of view of domestic violence. As you know, several months ago we had a tragic incident here at the premises of this university when a woman lecturer died as a caused by the domestic violence. And so we really think that it's an important issue and to reflect upon the economic basis of inequality and to reflect upon how this economic inequality can be overcome is a very important occasion for this. So we really are very thankful to the American Embassy and to the American Ambassador for visiting us and bringing such a wonderful speaker on this issue, who's Rania, Miss Rania Anderson. As far as I know, she has been traveling to Georgia to talk about this in Kutaisi, and now she came to Tbilisi, and I'm sure that she will find a very attentive and interested public at our university. But first of all, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Ambassador to greet you and to say a couple of words about why this is an important event. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Director. I'm really impressed that we're doing this whole thing in English. Is that right? Everybody here is doing this. That's very impressive. Congratulations. As the Director said, for us this is Women's History Month in the United States, and we're trying to bring special attention to the issues of women's participation in politics and in general, equal rights for women. The theme this year is Weaving the Stories of Women's Lives, and it presents the opportunity to weave women's stories individually and collectively into the essential fabric of our nation's history. This subject is actually quite important to me. My wife is a lawyer. She's a big believer in women's rights. When our daughter was born, I stayed home for about 7 or 8 months with our children, and she worked. And I had a chance to see the picture from the other side and had renewed appreciation for the role of the parent who stays home with the children. And the whole issue of how you balance your careers and your professional lives with your family life is something that actually the women's movement has helped to bring into greater focus. And it's helped to stimulate everybody's thinking on how to get that balance right. And I encourage you as you go forward from university into your professional lives that you think about how to balance the personal and the professional because it's very important. Also important, as I said, my wife is a lawyer, and in our country, getting women's rights has not always been a matter of just going out and asking for it. It's often been fought for in the courts, and the use of the legal system to ensure equal treatment of women has been an essential building block of greater women's participation in our country. And in fact, my wife is writing a biography of one of our Supreme Court justices, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who pioneered a lot of the key legal cases that helped produce greater equality for women in America. Sharing women's stories, going back to that theme, draws attention to strong role models and inspires girls to be daring and counters stereotypes while encouraging us to consider the fullness of women's potential. Our embassy's approach to gender equality and female empowerment is based on a premise that equal inclusion of women and men is key to achieving effective and sustainable development outcomes. We know that the increased participation and inclusion of women directly correlates with Georgia's long-term goal of a stable, integrated, peaceful and healthy society. The integration of women is so central to the long-term stability of the Georgian state and to the sustainability of Georgian democratic, free market, Western-oriented transformation that we feel we really need to pay special attention to that issue. I'm really delighted that Rania Anderson was able to join us today because she, much better than I, is going to be able to share with you some stories and some ideas that are going to take this theme of women's empowerment a little bit further. And so with that, Rania, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you very much.
Sorry, General.
Are you going to introduce yourself, or should I?
I can.
Yeah, say about your
All right.
background. I failed to read that.
No worries. I'm sorry I'm going to have my back to you, but I'm a rover, so.
There's usually running a saying that Rose does not have a back, so.
Can everyone hear me? Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me, Rector, Ambassador, the Embassy. I'm honored to be here with you, and I'm so happy to see your faces, and I'm really glad to see the men in the room as well. And we are on this journey together, and I'll be talking to you as well as to the women, so don't fall asleep. Okay, I've been here for a few days, and we have been to to Kataisi and to Gori, and we've met at the universities there with students like you, and we've met with 4 different business women's groups. And what I can tell you, and it's the topic of today, is that the people who are doing the best, who are the most successful, are well connected with a network of support of other men and women. And so today I'm going to share a little bit about my research and my findings and hopefully some helpful information to you, but also to talk about what does it look like to build a network in today's era and how can that help you in your career. So let me ask you a question first. What year students are you? Are you freshmen, sophomores, juniors, getting ready to graduate? Everything? Everything? Okay, great. So even if you're a freshman, this is important because the time to be thinking about your career and your future is from the beginning, not at the end. At the end, it's a little too late. So I'll just say a few words about myself, not so interesting, and then we'll get on to the topic. I'm originally from the Middle East. I grew up living all over the developing world. I lived in India, I lived in Iran, I lived in Ukraine, I lived in many, many countries. My father was in the airline business. And I came to the United States to go to college. And after graduate school, I had a long career in banking and worked in many different parts of the bank and became a vice president of the Bank of America, which is one of the largest banks in the United States. And then about 16 years ago, I started my own business, working with men and women, coaching them to be successful in their businesses. But all along, I had something that was troubling me in my heart that happened to me from when I was 11 years old, and I had vowed to do something about it. When I was a little girl living in India, we had a car to drive my sister and I to school every day. And along the way, at every stoplight, little girls would knock on the window to beg for money. And I would wonder why I got to go to school and they did not. And living, as you can imagine, in the Middle East and many other developing countries, I saw that over and over again. And I vowed that one day I would do something about that. So every year that I worked, I saved a little money. And when I turned 50, which is almost 4 years ago, I took that money and I started to go around the world to developing countries to talk to women about how have they become successful, not in the United States, and not in Western Europe, but in places like Africa, China, India, Russia, Central America, South America, and the Middle East. So in places like your city and in places like your country, what do women do to be successful? Not what are their problems, because we already know what all the problems are, right? So I was looking for the strategies of success. And I want to talk a little bit about that today, and then to talk about how you build that for yourself and those keys. Yeah. So people always ask me for like one thing they should do. And I wish that I could tell you one thing to do, because it would be easy. But it's not easy, and for those, I've met some women deans and women professors here, and they can tell you it's not easy. It's not easy for men either. It takes a lot of things. The first is to be competent in what you do, to have the skills for that. And I want to share some information that hopefully will stick with you. It takes, many studies have been done about this. It takes 10,000 hours to be really competent at something. 10,000 hours in every field, over and over again. So when you're thinking about how much you're working and what you want to do, if you want to become an engineer or an attorney or a business person, I was talking with Maria earlier about what she's interested in doing, and she was telling me all the books that she's been reading, and that's what it takes. You just have to put in the hours. And part of the reason Bill Gates became the head of Microsoft is he spent many hours in a lab. The second is to, and this is really the core of my research about women in emerging economies, that is, women who are successful don't give up. They are undeterred. No matter what the obstacles are, they will find a way around them. I'll tell you a short story. A woman that I met with in Argentina had a business where she needed to import raw materials for her product. And in Argentina, you're only allowed to import a certain amount of product in a day. And everyone told her she couldn't make her business work because she needed more than that amount of raw product. So what she did instead was every single day, she placed the order for the maximum amount that she could. And when she had enough, she would make product. So it's a way of not letting the system get to you. If there's a way around it, or if you can go to court, as Ambassador said, and change the law, then you try to do that. If you can't, you come up with a different system. So to not give up, to find the opportunities. And finding the opportunities is about really where are the needs in your community. So in Georgia, what do people need? Where is the growth coming from? Not to do the same kinds of things that everybody else is doing, but to do the kinds of things that nobody else is thinking about. A woman that I met did just exactly that. Many women I met did just exactly that. One that I think is interesting to think about in a university is a woman who, in her university, students were not allowed to bring computers to the lecture hall. Are you allowed to bring computers? Can you get online? Yeah. So at her school, they were not allowed. And what everyone kept telling her was that students really don't care about learning. They're not interested. And she didn't think that was the case. So she invited the students to bring their computers to class and to look up anything they wanted about what she was talking about and see if they could stump her. You know that word, stump her? Yeah. See if they can catch her. And many times they would ask her a question and she would say, I don't know, let's find out together. So they would research. And what she saw were students like you who love to learn. They just want to be given the opportunity, and they want to learn in the way that you want to learn. And so she decided to make a video, some videos about classes, and to put those online where students can have an exchange on video chat. And now she has a huge business with over 6,000 videos and many, many students who participate in that. So it's finding what is the thing that is missing and how do I fill that. And lastly, it's about interacting with people, and that's really going to be a lot of my comments today. There's a study, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor study, that was recently done, and it revealed that more than money, more than ability, more than anything else, what makes people successful is their network and support and the contacts they have with them. And so I'll talk about that, but in addition to that, I want to say especially to the women, what makes women successful is confidence. And I find in all my travels, really successful women still lack confidence. And so I want to speak for a minute in particular to you about that. Confidence comes from just taking action. Even if you don't feel confident, if you just take a movement forward and try something, you will gain a little more confidence. If you just stand a little bit taller, if you just take up a little bit more space, when you sit at the table, you'll just feel a little bit more confident. We know that when positions are open, if women have 80% of the skills to fill that job, they don't apply for the job. Because they think they can't do it. But when men have 50% of the skills for the job, what do you think they do? They apply. They say, I can do it. So we need to learn from the men to give it a chance. I was just speaking with the rector and about the engineering school here at the school and all the wonderful things you all are doing in the program with the San Diego University and how we're trying to encourage more women students to be in engineering. I can tell you this is a problem everywhere in the world, and we need more women engineers and more women scientists. So I encourage you to please do it, because you can. I know that you can. So be confident in yourselves and ask for what you want and take advantage of the opportunities. Okay. So what's different about networking in 2015 that was not the case in the past, or maybe not as much in the past? When we build a network for everyone in the community. So the university here is building a network for you, and the embassy is participating in part of that network by providing services and opportunities. Example, bringing me, doing cultural activities. And the government is part of the network, and businesses are part of the network. And when we each do our part, we make the pie bigger. We make more opportunities for everyone. When we're part of a network, we learn more, we know more. We take advantage of those opportunities. Probably one of the starkest examples that I have in my 4 years of research of someone who didn't understand that was a young woman, not much older than many of you in this room. She lived in Malaysia, and she thought there was not a lot of opportunities in Malaysia. So She had an idea of something she wanted to do in the fashion industry, and she thought it would be a good idea to do it in Mexico. She didn't speak any Spanish. Anyway, she got on an airplane, and on the plane she's listening by tape to learn Spanish, and she goes to Mexico, and her idea was to do a fashion swap. Fashion swap is, I exchange my clothes with you, you give me your clothes. People in Mexico thought it was a stupid idea. They didn't want to do that. She didn't have a network. She didn't have the knowledge that she needed. So her family said to her, "Are you crazy? Come back home to Malaysia." And she was pretty undeterred and resilient. And she started to meet and talk to people and have mentors and understand what is the marketplace and what do people need in Mexico and how is the fashion industry. And she changed her business to become a business where you rent, wedding gowns and evening gowns and that kind of thing. And now she's very successful in Central America for that. So the lack of a network means you're missing something, some information that you need and you don't have. When we were traveling, we saw examples of business women where they had a very strong network in Kutaisi, and they had been working together for a long time, and so they had a lot of hope. But in the places where there was no network, the women felt like they really couldn't get ahead. So, how do you build a successful network? You give. It's not about what you need, it's about what you have to give. And if you think as a student you don't have much to give, you're wrong. Because you have everything to give. You are the ones who have the knowledge and information that people need today. And so even though you might want to meet and know someone of influence and power in your community, you also have power and influence. Because you have the latest information given to you by this great university, you have technical skills that other people have, and you have insights that people need as a consumer, as a young person, and as a thinker about your city and your country. And so you have a lot to give. I'm going to ask you to just take 1 second right now and think to yourself, what is it that I have to give? Let me just give you a minute. Got something? Yeah? Okay. So you keep that in mind as we go along. All right. So, with that thing in mind, to build a network, if you bring value to that network and you give of yourself, and everybody gives, and not for what you want in return, then you will increase the opportunities for everyone. And that will continue being passed along. This morning I was having breakfast at the hotel, and the waitress saw me writing, and she came up to ask me what I was writing. And she spoke perfect English. And so we started to talk, and she told me that she used to be an interpreter, but now she's working in a hotel. And she engaged with me about my work, and she told me a lot of things about what it was like to work in Tbilisi. And she became more knowledgeable, and I became more knowledgeable. But I couldn't give her anything, and she couldn't really give me anything except the knowledge. And neither one of us was looking for that. But what she gave me was something to tell you today. And what I gave her, I don't know. We'll see what that will be. So, it's about generously giving of other people. How do you do that? Well, you you first have to know what it is you're worth and what you bring to the table, and you have to have a story. What do I mean by that? I've met so many people here in the last few days, and many of them tell me what they want or need. Like, we need more money for our business. Or, the opportunities in Gori are very difficult. Or, something like that. But they don't tell me their story. What is it you want to do? One young woman that we met came up to us and she had a wonderful idea. And she told us about her idea about this kind of bookstore she wanted to have and how it would be and what it would look like and how it would make money. That's a story. If you tell me a story, then I can help you. All right? So you've got to know what your story is. And the second thing to think about is that the people you know the most are actually the least helpful. They give you strength, they make bonds with you, they're your support people, you can cry, you can laugh, you can go shopping, but they know pretty much everything you know. They know the same people you know. So to build a network, you actually have to connect with people who are weak ties, who you don't know very well, right? Because they have other contacts and other information and interesting and innovative things to tell you. So when I talked to the waitress at the Marriott, I actually learned a lot about what it is like to get to work in Tbilisi every day. I wasn't going to learn that from the ambassador. So think about not just the people you know, but the people in a broader network. And how are you going to meet them? And where are the places that you're going to go to talk to people? And where do you have an advantage to talk to people to come up with ideas? A woman I met in Turkey, she really wanted to go and work for Microsoft. She didn't know how to find a way to go to work for Microsoft. She didn't know anybody there. She knew there was a conference going on, and so she went to the conference. She didn't have a ticket or anything, and she stood in the line pretending that she had a ticket to go in until she stood right next to the man who was the CEO of Microsoft, who was going in, and she started talking to him, and he said, "Oh, what are you doing?" She told him, and he said, "Oh, well, come on, you can call my office tomorrow, here's my card." Right? So that's kind of stalking people, but sometimes you have to do something a little bit out of the ordinary to meet the kind of people that you want, and to be confident enough to put yourself in a situation where maybe you'll have that opportunity. Again, don't be afraid to do so, and don't think you don't have something to offer, because you do. Most people are looking for people to hire with your kinds of skills, with your kinds of talent, with your kinds of hope. So you might feel like you're the one needing something, but actually they need you. I also would encourage you to have people who are older than you to be your mentors. And last night we had an amazing evening with a group of businesswomen here in Tbilisi. It's a new group called Women of the Future. And they're forming a group, and there's some really, really successful businesswomen there. And I know they would love to help you, and there are many women like them who can help you, and men who can help you and men who can help men. I'll take a little side note because I remember about the ambassador talking about men and women working together to share a small story about a man in Indonesia and how men and women are working together to create more balance and enable women to work. So this man saw that his wife really wanted to go back to work, but she was breastfeeding. And it was a problem. How is she going to get the milk back to the house? And he ran a courier system. And so he created a new business with people on motorcycles to go around to the offices and collect milk and take it back to people's homes. He made a lot of money doing it. And he enabled a lot of women to get to go to work that didn't in the past. So it's a we're working together on this. So reverse mentoring. Do you know that term? It's when us old people, we need you as the mentors because you know about so many things that we don't know about. So you can mentor us. And the last is the sponsor. Do you know what that term means? It has been proven to be one of the key differences of success between men and women. More men in businesses have a sponsor than women do. What is that? So a mentor is someone who can give you advice and ideas, but they can't do anything for you. A sponsor is someone who has the authority and power to do something for you on your behalf at the office. So I could be your mentor and give you some advice, but if I don't work in Georgia and I don't know who the people are to make a difference for you, I can't do that. So find those people as you begin to work and connect with them because they will make the difference for you in your career. So you're identifying people you want to know, why you want to know them, and I've made the point you want to know people ahead of you, people who are coming up, your peers, and maybe this is a good time to talk about that. So all these people in this room are one day going to be working probably somewhere around here. So this is your built-in network. And someday when you're a business owner, somebody over there is going to be a banker. And somebody over here is going to be an attorney. And somebody over there is going to be an accountant. And you're going to be your own network. So think about that as you're in school. And you develop a plan, right? You have a plan for your studies, and you have a plan for your career. It doesn't just happen. You don't just get a job and everything goes great. You make a plan. And the plan can change many times, but you still have a plan. And when it changes, you revise it. So I talked about generosity. And when you meet someone, you should be thinking, not what do I need from them, but what can I give them? And if you listen really carefully to what they're talking about, you'll find something you can give them. And if everybody thinks about what they can give, not what they need, the pie will be hugely expanded. Do you know why things are so successful in Silicon Valley in California? There have been studies where they make a map of how connected people are. You know, like one of those diagrams with lots and lots and lots of dots. Silicon Valley is the most connected city area in the world. Everybody is connected to everybody. everybody, the university, Stanford University, the universities there, and the people with the money, the VCs, and the business people, and the accountants, they're all so connected that they help each other. Where I live in Kansas City, which is in the middle of the United States, we're not very well connected. And it's a problem. So if we all think about how we can help each other, it makes a huge difference. So I would love to have any questions that you want to ask me. And I know we have two wonderful student speakers, and I'm really excited to hear from them so I can learn something as well. You've been a wonderful audience, and I'll just take your questions if you have any. Yes.
So, I think the first question.
Yes, please.
Hello, my name is Luka Gokipedashvili. I'm a biology major, senior year. Thank you. My question isn't directly related to your topic that you presented, but I thought you might give some insight. So it has a bit of a backstory, so please bear with me.
Okay.
I was in 2012 parliamentary elections, I was an interpreter in southeast region of Georgia, where with the ethnic Azeri population. And like culture there is more patriarchal, even more so than here. Okay. And how shall I put this? Many of them were, like, many couldn't read or write even. And I was interpreting for an opposition activist from Belarus. She was like a very charismatic, sort of even aggressive in a positive sense woman. And I asked her, how can this be? Like, people can't read and write, and it's not because they're discriminated in any way, it's just their way of being, right? And well, she said that except for obvious stuff, that they don't have women to complement them, they, and this might be a little bit controversial, men do not have a requirement to woo women. Because they have them for granted, so they don't have this sort of evolutionary incentive into like developing themselves. So what's your take on that? Is that accurate, you would say? I mean, would you agree with that?
Are you asking me, do men?
Is the sort of, in cultural sense, in terms of developing and progress, is there this connection between men and women, that men sort of impress women and vice versa probably, and that sort of drives the society forward?
So I don't know if this will exactly answer your question, but I'm going to talk about two things in relationship to that. We do know that when women don't see other women role models, it's very difficult for them to see themselves in that capacity. You can't be what you don't see, right? So, which is why the ambassador talked about the stories of women, which is why I spoke to over 250 women and had those stories to provide to you, is to be able to see that women can be head of technology businesses. And even in places like Saudi Arabia, the COO of General Electric, one of the largest companies in the world, is a woman. There are women heads of banks of multi-billion dollars. So women are in senior roles. So that is one. Two, women have done a lot of things to try to get ahead, both in the United States, Europe, and other developing countries. but we haven't managed very well. We are over 50% of the graduates. We have many of the highest levels of PhDs in many industries. We go to work, but we don't become senior people. And what we're learning now is what is going to make the difference, in addition to women's confidence, is our ability to work with men. And for men to advocate on behalf of women, and for men to open doors for women, because you hold the power, right? And if we think about, if men give up power for women, we're never going to get ahead. If we think that to working together, men and women, we will make more power, then we're really about something, right? So I do think that that connection and the thought of how can we work on this together does increase economic growth and development in any community. Anyone else? I'll be really sad if no women ask questions, because it's one of my pet peeves that the men always ask the questions. So I'm putting you on the spot. I will cry if no women ask questions. So somebody has to be brave enough. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge. In the first place, you mentioned that when women don't have role models, they really want to become very successful, become CEOs, etc. But I think anyways, we can become CEOs without having role models, but it's very rare. Sometimes women need to work on themselves. What can women, or from point of view, or from your point of view, what can women do to become successful, to motivate themselves without having role models? What we can do?
It's a great question, thank you. So I think what we can do, what I know we can do to work on ourselves is to first believe and have the desire to do something, to surround ourselves with other women who have the same aspirations. So they're telling us we can do it and we're telling them. So if you want to be successful in your career, do not hang out with people who don't want the same things, because they're going to hold you back. To think about failure, and this is something we're not very good at, right? It's not a very nice thing to fail. But I have not met a successful business person who has not had failures. So to know that we're going to fail and to be okay with that, and to take action, just try something, do something, you know, take a step forward, come up with a plan, and every day try to take one step more forward in terms of your career and your confidence and your heart. And then to read, you know, to read about other women, or to get online, or to email somebody and ask them how they do what they do. I hear from women all over the world that don't know who they are, and they just send me an email and say, what do you think about this? And I respond back to them, because I believe in generously giving, and it's come back to me 10 times. And so that's what I would encourage you to do. All right, I'm ready to hear from the students. Are you guys? Yeah? Great. Thank you again. It's been a real honor to be with you. What you're doing here at this university is really remarkable in 9 years to come to this place. When I see your faces, I see the hope of Georgia. And I'm excited to see what you will bring. Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Embassy, for giving me this great opportunity. Your country is beautiful.
Could I just add one quick prompted me to have two thoughts. One is, she mentioned networking, and I do want to let you know that for young people such as yourselves, obviously very talented, good English, we do have internships at the embassy in our public affairs office and in some of the other offices. And if you're interested, I'll ask you, James, to take your names. You know, we can't guarantee a spot, but these are, you know, either short or longer term internships that could be a good opportunity to get to know both how an embassy works, but also to get to know different people and do some networking. And the other thing, in terms of role models, I'm very conscious. I've been very privileged during my time as ambassador here to deal with some very impressive role models for women in Georgia. And I'm thinking of the foreign ministers, women ministers I've dealt with. Foreign Minister Panjikidze, Foreign Minister Ashbili, the Education Minister Tamarsanikidze, and of course the Justice Minister Tianzuliani. These are all superb members of the cabinet and very impressive role models, I think, for Georgia women.
So it's really very challenging to have a speech after your excellence performance. So I felt some kind of problems with self-confidence, but I'll just follow your advice and just act. Okay, a little bit about myself. Recently I do my doctorate degree in business administration at Ilia State University. I'm involved in the research projects. I run my own company as well, and I give lectures in strategic management for the students in business administration. So now I'll concentrate on women's rights, and I'll just read my speech. So, dear guests, colleagues, students, I'm honored to address such a diverse audience and would like to use this opportunity to talk about women's rights in today's Georgia. And I hope that those who show the empathy towards existing reality will once again think on what they can do for gender equality. Those who see the problem will strengthen their resolve, and those who fight for the better future will be encouraged to further advocate for women's rights. I would like to bring your attention to Social Progress Index in Georgia and the reasons for Georgia's low ranking and possible solutions to gender equality. As you may already know, 3 years ago, Ilia State University received an affiliation status from Harvard Business School. This is the first time I really have an opportunity to thank U.S. Embassy in Georgia and especially His Excellency Ambassador Ricchard for his support in the affiliation process. In 2013, while visiting Harvard Business School, Social Progress Index was introduced as the newest technique to measure the level of country's social welfare using non-traditional tools of evaluation. Based on this index, out of 50 countries, Georgia was on the 29th place. And if we look deeper, we'll find that the current ranking was low on the most part because of the unfavorable track record in human rights and gender equality. This finding motivated us at Ilia Business School to begin research and study women as active stakeholders in Georgia's social life and the economy. I won't go into too much details on the study, but will just share with you some of our findings. As an example, in private sector, only 12% of executive level positions are held by women. Women are paid 50% less than men for the same job performed. We are not involved in decision-making process. No inclusive environment is guaranteed for women. Out of 150 members of parliament, only 18 are women. We really have to work hard. It will take years to achieve gender equality in our society, but also it depends on what we do to change existing reality. stereotypical thinking, patriarchal dominant preferences, religion, culture are the areas which have a significant influence on the specific issues, and today are decided on the grounds of gender inequality. The scope of women's self-realization is limited, which negatively reflects on the country's socio-economic development. Society at large is in a position to change gender inequality in Georgia. But in this case, we need champions, persons who will take leadership to identify this problem and advocate for changes. In November 2014, Georgian women's movement was declared itself as the agent of social change. It unites over 500 women activities who raise their voice against violence and discrimination. The movement advocates equal rights and opportunities for all. Women in Georgia will continue to struggle for equality, and I believe that in one day there won't be exist glass ceiling for us. We believe that we can strengthen each other with full support based on the shared values. Thank you for attention, and thank you to organizers of this event for giving us the opportunity to listen to Rania Anderson, one of the best role models for every woman. Thank you.
Can I just say one? That was really interesting information, and I think it's not too dissimilar for many places. When I heard directors speak so openly about domestic violence at the beginning, I meant to remark on that. And I have the opportunity to go to universities all over the world. I think it's the first time I've ever heard somebody be so open, and so you have a champion here at the school, I can see that, and it's that sort of example that's going to change things. So you guys are starting in a good place. It's a long way to go, but you're starting in a good place.
Hello, my name is Rania. I'm second year student at Ilyas State University Business School, and my speech is a bit more inexperienced. I'm going to talk about my experiences as a young woman in Georgia. I'm going to go through my presentation. And I'm going to tell you my stories to illustrate that. So, when I decided to write this speech and prepare the presentation for today, I decided to go with the quote. And the quote goes like this: people don't want to be seen to see women doing things they don't think women should do. And this is a quote by Joan Jett, who was a wonderful woman, very rebellious, very independent, but I'm not here today to talk about Joan Jett. I'm here to talk about my experience as a woman in Georgia. My experience of choosing a path of becoming a business person in Georgia and what that has been like. I've learned that when you try to explain something, you have to go back to the beginning. And my beginning didn't start before school. Before that, I was in this wonderful world of unicorns and ponies in which gender inequality doesn't exist. Because what matters in the playground is how well you play games. And I was pretty good at playing games, so boys and girls were different. But I went to school, I was in first grade, and a teacher walked in, and we had a math lesson, and she started explaining some problem, and she said this comment has stuck with me all these years. Well, boys have different brains from girls, so they will understand this, but girls just try to keep up. And I was born in a family of two sisters who have done whatever they wanted. A dad who admired women so much that even our dogs have always been female. A mother who balanced work life and family life together. So this concept of boys having better brains or different brains than girls was different to me. So all those years that that woman taught us, I tried very hard to be as best as I could, and I kept waiting for her to realize that, no, it turns out girls are just as good as boys. And at the end of our 4-year study, she went to one of the teachers and she said, that girl's very clever. She thinks just like a boy. And, I grew up, and I thought that as environment changes and as we grow up, maybe people around you realize that when I make a decision, I don't have to prove myself each time. And it turns out that's not like that. When I was in 12th grade, I decided that I wanted to pursue business because I didn't really have any particular thing I wanted to do. I wanted to see how things are built and managed, and maybe someday manage something of my own. So I decided I'm going to pursue business. And to illustrate for you what that decision, what kind of feedback that decision had, I'm going to give you an example. Around that time, I started running. I've always been an awful runner. As soon as I started running, I'm out of I can't breathe. So I was like, I want to make that good. I want to tackle that. And around the place that I would run, the people that worked out were predominantly male. At first, they didn't really look at me. They looked at me cautiously. What is this creature? Then they were like, she needs help. So one by one, they would come up and say, do you need help? This is not how it's done. You don't hold your hands like that. You should move your feet like this. You're not doing it properly. All of these comments have been said to me. Maybe you should try something different. This place is not for that. And what's funny and sad at the same time, the same things have been said to me when I said that I wanted to pursue business. And I realized that these people looked at me as this fragile creature that needs help along the way and needs guidance. They didn't look at me as a person who has made a decision. And this goes back to the first quote. People don't want to see women do things they don't think women should do. Because they have these ideas that women should be these feminine creatures, ethereal creatures that do this and not this. And I think as women, we as women are strong enough to make decisions for ourselves, to decide what we want to do and what we want to pursue. And that's what I've been trying to prove since being 6 years old and trying to do best at math so that I could say that girls are just good enough. And working out every day to run not just as fast, but faster than guys so that I can prove that girls are just good enough. And right now I'm pursuing my career in business to one day manage something of my own and say that maybe being a woman is just good enough. Thank you. And it's an honor to speak here and to meet Rania. I adore her, so thank you very much.
So thank you so much for Mr. Ambassador for inviting Rania and for speaking today, for being today with us. And special thanks to Rania for speaking in such a fascinating but also in such an open manner and providing inspiration, I'm sure, not only for women but also for all of us, irrespective of gender, and it's great about her speech. And with special pride, I would like to thank our students who have shown us that basically in the last couple of days it has become rather fashionable. The president of this country and the Speaker of the Parliament have been saying that they see their successors as women, and the country will benefit from that. And I can actually say, after listening to the presentation, but also knowing the work at this university done by women, that actually if the next rector of this university will be a woman, it will be in very good hands. So we have seen that today. Thank you very much.